So hi, welcome to our meeting number 9 of our official Solve SaaSOps Live virtual event. We have had a few more of these. Some of them have been unfiltered, where we don't talk and we talk, have discussions more openly. These conversations are great. We do love them. This one, is recorded and will be shared. So we do need to be aware of what we say and what information we share. So always, guys, be cautious of don't providing any information that should not be public. But we'll talk about. Pardon?
And don't swear too much.
Yes, and try not to swear Rose too much. But today we're going to be talking, let's discuss the managing of workforce reduction and SaaS application reduction, which I know, unfortunately, because we were.
Are you sure this should be a recorded solve?
I think it should. Because
people should learn from it.
Because we can talk about the principles and we can talk about things theoretically as opposed to being specific to our organizations. We shouldn't be specific to our organizations because some of us are, some of us have, we know where we are amongst ourselves as colleagues, but I think as a general topic, in this day and age, it's a very good one about how we as IT professionals would manage this, because the managing the workforce reduction, and also the knock-on effect of your SaaS applications is something that millions of, I wouldn't say millions, a lot of companies are dealing with at the moment. So I just did a quick Google search for coronavirus layoffs, and Business Insider.com have a list of all of the top companies, and these aren't tech companies, but of course
at one point too.
Yeah. Let me just read through this list. Obviously, these aren't all tech companies, but they're companies where people will need email and applications. So we've got Chevron, we've got Boeing, IBM. Also, there's Uber. Probably a lot of them would be their drivers. Airbnb did a huge reduction in their staff, 25%. Virgin Atlantic, even if people are flight crew and that, they still need, access to accounts and systems. United Airlines, Lyft, another ride-sharing app, TripAdvisor, obviously knock on from the tourism industry. Another one from the tourism industry, Hertz, car rental people, everybody needs an email address and access to collaboration documents. Walt Disney World, even the guy in the Mickey Mouse suit probably needs to have an email address and access to other SaaS-based applications that they would need. Even Tesla, the JC Penney, everybody who works, at the register still probably has some system that's SaaS-based. Under Armour, and this page just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls, unfortunately, and goes all the way down. So, managing the workforce. There are policies and procedures for deprovisioning accounts, and there's a lot of webinars about that. But then, normally you don't do it in bulk. You normally do it in, ones or twos here and there, depending, as your staff leave. And then there's also the added complication of furloughing, removing access, but then a staff coming back. And then the actual licensing and the SaaS applications. I'm guessing the majority of you, like myself, have annual licenses where you're not paying, a fixed, a short-term monthly agreement where you're paying every month. You've, committed to an annual agreement, maybe at the beginning of the year, and, you're having to lose 200 users. That's 200 licenses of an application that's not going to be used for the remainder of the year. What are our thoughts about trying to manage that, negotiating with vendors, doing changes?
This is why when we don't have to sign annual contracts, we don't. Like we just transitioned one of our tools to an annual contract off of month to month, our ticketing system. And we did it because we can't see a future in which we change our ticketing system.
Right, yeah.
Unlike some of our other applications. But I think, for the most part, if we are good on pricing, just standard base pricing, and we don't want to negotiate or anything, we're fine doing month to month, and we definitely don't sign anything longer than 1 year.
Right.
Your ticketing system, Rose, is end user based.
What?
They charge end user based, don't they?
Yeah, it's per user. Yeah.
Yeah. So you still have the issue if the end users drop.
Yeah, but they're also a lot of these companies nowadays. If you do months a month, or even if you do an annual contract, like they let you flex a lot. So we tend to go over well before our renewals, and then so if it drops a little bit, it's okay. We have had some stuff happen like that before, where we've had to cut like 100, 125 licenses from different systems, but I don't know. It's just I think if you think of employee cutting as a cost saving measure, that's one way in which it is not, because you won't save any money from the licenses.
Usually.
That's also why I like active billing.
That is the best thing about Slack with their active license use billing. But
Well, and even Better Cloud technically only bills you for the number of users that you have.
yes, but if somebody isn't using the service, or if you have a G Suite account or an Office 365 account and it's not being used, you still get charged for that license. It's the same for Dropbox. If you use if you've got an annual contract and you use Dropbox once in that year, then you'll get charged the full license fee for business, which is a huge expense.
Which, by the way, Google has active user billing for Drive Enterprise, which is now G Suite Essentials.
They have it for Essentials.
They have only on that SKU, they have this active user billing,
right?
Which is pretty rare, because when you go Google, you usually take Gmail with you.
And you pay for active user billing too. It costs more than.
Yeah, it costs more than committed. Yes.
Yeah.
A bit.
Well, yeah, than basic. Yeah.
Right. So out of a show of hands, and maybe we've got some other people joining. Hello, Chris, lovely double screens you've got there and behind you. It's a very good backdrop.
I got one up here too.
I'm one up there too. And there's 4 screens. Wow, that's brilliant.
Yeah, he's sitting this way so you can see it because he wants to show off.
Yes.
He's not compensating.
Yeah.
He's not compensating for anything.
Yeah. I should really have a camera here so you can see my 2 screens here, as opposed to the old refrigerator and my laundry room behind me in the basement. So,
I'm just gonna join a second time.
yeah. And we've got how do you pronounce it? Shmuel? Listening? Shmuel?
It's Shmuel.
Shmuel.
Hi there.
Well, hey.
Hi, welcome. First
You don't have to
time
participate.
caller, I think.
I'm sorry.
Are you're a first time joiner?
To what? To
our call?
yeah. I think so. Yeah. I wasn't. It was I saw an email. I didn't know this. I didn't even know that the scope was this a bigger thing, a smaller thing, an ongoing thing.
So yeah, this is a perfect time for a little interlude and a commercial break where we explain what Solve is. So yeah, this is just a bi-monthly, every other week, whatever that works out to be. And a bunch of us guys and girls get together and we discuss what's happening in SaaSOps.
We have different topics, but sometimes we don't follow them.
Yeah, we like to have it
on the off
Like
week. We have one called Solve Unfiltered, which is not recorded, and we talk about sensitive things.
Yeah, basically, like every other talkative podcast, we have a topic and we don't care about it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We try and have some rhyme and reason to our madness.
Sometimes we have 2 topics and we only get to 1, to be fair.
Yes. But I think the two of these merge in. Obviously, the topic is workforce and SaaS application reduction. In these times where costs are being looked at for everything. And I know later on in a couple of weeks we were going to speak about how do you justify having Slack and Zoom when you've got G Suite. Or Office 365, and you've got Teams, for your group chat. And also because we're recording this, we are keeping, private company information private. But as we've heard from Rose and Dominic, anybody else got thoughts around licensing and application reduction? Is anybody looking at it? Have you heard from your colleagues?
So we're looking at it. We had to lay off 7 people, about 20, so quite a bit for our little organization. But we have signed some yearly. We paid up front for yearly contracts, so they already have our money. So I've reached out to actually a few of them. A few of them are willing to actually work with us on it for a short period of time, which is interesting because they already have our money, and you think it'd hurt them. But like our copy machines are sitting in the office unutilized at all, and we're renting them, and so we actually lease them. So they're working with us on that. So it's not just applications. Sometimes it's hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it never hurts to ask the question, is my point. So you can, even though you already have something in place, you can reach out to your sales contact or whoever they direct you to, which is what we've done, because also our internet and phones are sitting there kind of useless since we're mostly in the cloud. So
yes, yeah. If you start calculating the potential lost usage of your expenditure, it can be very, very painful. We have 150 Google Meet hardware kits, Chromebox for meetings around all of our offices, and they're not being used.
Your ROI goes down considerably if you spend a lot of money on something that you're no longer using.
Especially when I renewed all those licenses on the 3rd of March. But I submitted the PO in like January or February. So they're all currently licensed and not being used. But then we have the same costs with office space and everything else. But this is something that costs that we can manage. Has anybody been looking at going to lower tiers for software? Normally we like the higher tiers because we need the single sign-on, or you need the API integration. Have any other conversations happened with vendors about flexibility on billing?
I just had a conversation with a vendor about contracts. We were requesting an additional license for Okta, and we only need it for part of our domain. And they wanted us to sign our renewal at the same time, with like their position that we would save on the 7% re-up.
Right.
Uptick when our renewal actually came around. But I was like, listen, I don't want to have the renewal conversation until we're much, much closer, because Okta is one of the only systems that we have that has everybody in it. And so it's a large number, and it can fluctuate wildly depending on what happens at 7 different organizations.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
It's a bit more
I did get them to back off of the year extension though, so that was good.
It's a bit more anecdotal, but Chris and I are involved in the pre-sale process for SaaS adoption, and we're seeing a huge uptick in people either ripping and replacing an existing tool for something that affects more things like Better Cloud, right? Or looking at downgrading licenses, let's say G Suite Enterprise to Business, and then having Better Cloud kind of fill in that gap, right? Or Okta ULM or whatever, and getting just more creative with where they're putting their dollars. Instead of before, it would be like, oh, we're going to have a CASB and Okta ULM and Google Enterprise and Better Cloud. Now it's like, okay, well, I get to pick one. Like, which one am I going to pick that I get to keep and drop the others? Seeing a huge uptick in those versus the before time.
We're looking a lot more. I mean, we always look towards consolidation wherever we can when it makes sense. But I think now we're leaning on the consolidation as a operational and financial incentive, more than just like an IT wants to do this thing because we want to kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're probably all guilty for choosing the flashy tech when we could justify the budget for it and use it. I think certainly now, now that if anybody had an on-premise domain, you're really questioning, do you need are you ever going to need an on-premise domain again? Do you just move solely to, cloud-based management, and then, often those tools are a lot cheaper and easier to manage than, a Microsoft Active Directory infrastructure. I wouldn't want to be in the, somebody was getting rid of the printer. Caleb, you were, mentioning about printers and those leases. I wouldn't want to be in that business, or the Cisco switch business. How many organizations are going to need looking at their big stack of Catalyst switches that, the lights aren't blinking anymore because everybody's at home.
Yeah, there's a yin and yang to that. So if you're looking to consolidate or shrink your spend, on the other side, they're scrambling to sell, and you may not get any leverage with Zoom, but pretty much every other vendor right now, I imagine, they're willing to work with you greatly to keep that revenue coming in, because even if it's not an all hands on deck at that particular company, they know it's right around the corner. Like there's going to be an economic downturn more than we're seeing now. It's going to have a ripple effect down the line. And as that becomes more apparent, then people will be more willing to work with you.
We recently, we laid off 3 employees last week. So not a huge thing, but I said that during a meeting with a vendor. I said, we just laid off some of our first employees last week, and their faces changed immediately.
Oh.
So if you're doing it,
yes, I think them now.
Yeah, it was immediate. Because it was in that contract conversation with Okta, and they pushed pretty hard to sign for the longer contracts, and they have before, and they succeeded before. But it was as soon as I said that, they were like, "Oh, that's fine. We can just do the extension. We'll talk about it in a couple of months. It's cool."
Well, because even those larger companies are getting hit by this, and it's a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
For major corporations as well as smaller corporations, including completely cloud-based operations. I mean, we're not laying anybody off, but when we're working with our VoIP system, that we're trying to say, well, half of these numbers are in our offices for conference rooms and things like. We don't have anybody in our offices. We don't have, those conference rooms aren't even being used. So those numbers we're trying to get credits back from some of these companies, not because we don't necessarily need the licenses. We will when we open the offices, but that stuff just isn't getting used now. But when
it's a service,
a lot of our
when it's a service you're paying for, if the service isn't being used, it doesn't make a lot of sense to pay for it, but that's not how the business models work. They work on continual month-by-month subscriptions, and that's how they operate a company. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't fit into their model, it's tricky for everyone.
But Rose, to go back to what you're saying, I mean, you utilize the. I mean, I hate to say use it anyway, but no matter what, use it. Use what's going on in the current world right now as leverage for every single contract, every single license, every single discussion with a vendor. Don't hide it. I mean, it's leverage on your way. They're going to be able to they will change their licensing and cost models in order to keep you on as a customer.
Or they won't. And you find another service.
Yeah, it's 50-50. I think
if you have 5,000 employees and you could lose 20% of them by the time your renewal comes up, it doesn't make any sense to even think about it.
Right.
Yeah, Josh, I think you bring up a solid point. I think that's something we've heard from prospects and customers as well, right? They don't want to make the commitment for a 3-year deal. I mean, that's just out of the equation. But they're like, we can make this a little interesting. How about we do month to month? And maybe in 6 months we revisit this, when we feel like we've got our, our stuff together, and we're not, financially freaking out in this viral spiral. So it's interesting how I've seen, not just Better Cloud, but I've seen a lot of other companies get really, creative on how they can start to pitch this new kind of recipe for success to sell and pitch the product without making it look like you're paying for 3 years, right? It's like, oh, well, here's 3 years, but the third year's free, something like that. And so it's interesting to see like the dynamic now of that decision criteria when you're pitching.
One thing I feel bad for is all of the paid Slack apps.
Oh yeah.
Just do like nice things for you.
Yeah.
I feel bad for those guys
That's
because
true.
I don't know how you leveraged that expense to your company. Like,
I don't know.
How you leverage the Hey Tacos of the world. I love Hey Taco for what it's worth. I think it's an adorable app, but like, yeah, I just don't know, like Better Cloud, like we know most of people on the call use it. Like it has huge operational overhead returns. Like it can do a lot of stuff that helps us recoup some of the cost of IT. But like, what are the Hey Tacos doing?
How much is Hey Taco? What does it do?
$3 per user per month.
What?
Yeah, it's really expensive.
For the basic tier.
And
what
does
Hey Taco do?
Exchange your tacos for real life tacos.
What does Hey Taco do? Just I don't know.
Yeah, what
for the report.
It's like a fancy version of plus plus. It's like kudos. Like
kudos.
You give somebody a taco, and they accumulate tacos, and then they can exchange their tacos for real life rewards.
But you have to pay additionally extra afterwards anyway.
Yes, you have to pay for the rewards also. So it's $3 per user.
Well, what the fuck?
I know.
They have they said that they have an active user model too, and when I asked them, they were like, yeah, so if a user uses it, you'll be charged for them.
Yeah, so if
forever.
they send a taco or if they give a taco, that's
so I'm going to tell people like, you can give tacos, but be very careful. Please don't give a taco if you don't have to.
That's $3 a month.
That's the thing is like these are employee engagement programs that rely on your users understanding how they work and being like, give people tacos when they should be rewarded, but not too much.
And
because we're paying.
We were having customers trying to reduce their Dropbox spend by 9,000 gigabytes for like 200 users towards 9 terabytes for 200 users, and they were going to migrate all of this data in the next couple of weeks to G Suite because it's free there, obviously.
Yes.
And
I think that the thing though is great is that it makes it very clear where your redundancies are. And Colin alluded to this. Apparently we're going to have another solve about it someday. But like we have redundancies on purpose on our team. Like Slack and Zoom are best in breed tools that work better than the native G Suite ones. And we have them because at the time we could afford them. But if ever in the future, hard pressed, we know exactly which features we would lose by switching to G Suite. And we also know how much money we'd save because we wouldn't have to use those tools anymore.
Right. And you only have to wait until the 12th of June to have that discussion.
Well, it's interesting, like the pros and cons come to the front. Like you really have to sit and weigh your options more broadly than before, right? Like if we compare, I was talking to a customer yesterday and they're talking about switching from O365 to G Suite. I'm like, okay, there are some great benefits of doing that. Love G Suite, definitely prefer it. But you're going to also have some serious downsides in comparison, and that's what these are. And you need to look at those holistically on top of, the macroeconomics of the real reason you're doing that is to save money, to save jobs. Like, okay, so if that's the real reason, then kind of all this other stuff doesn't matter. Like what's more important? Like where are we putting hierarchy on this stuff? No longer is it, oh, this is easier to manage for IT, so this is what we're going to go with. Or this is easier on our users, so this is what we're going to go with. It's, would you like to still be a user? Great, then that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah.
Right. So we run, we're a Windows shop running Office on all the computers in a G Suite mail domain. And yeah, we periodically have a discussion, save $100,000 if we just move to, Microsoft's environment altogether. And yes, there is a reduction in cost, but if you look at a total cost, we don't have an Exchange administrator. We'd have to have an MSP or hire somebody or train people, and there's stumbling blocks. There's so something that's at core of service.
Yeah, if you have
Huge
G Suite
picture.
admins on your team, and you
Right.
just
I run the whole domain by
365,
myself essentially.
right?
And that's not, yeah, that wouldn't happen. And
Yeah,
the service desk, it knows how to fix things. They don't know Office 365.
If you move to Office 365, you're not going to need an Exchange admin. You know, anybody who is Exchange admins are a dying breed, because people are either going to do Office 365, where Microsoft manage it all. You don't have to worry about your volumes and your storage and your mailbox.
I agree that you don't need an Exchange admin, but you would probably want somebody who's knowledgeable about Office 365.
Yes, yeah, just the same as you'd need somebody with skills for G Suite. But yeah, you can save 100,000, and it either goes to the profit of the company, or it helps retain one or two members of staff, or it provides you with pizza every Friday. I always look at every broken laptop is essentially the office not getting pizza for a day. If everything can be given a price.
I should use that on my
good way of thinking about it. Pizza.
Yeah, we can have a
for the IT team.
office, but you broke your laptop, so
Yeah,
that's how much that costs.
yeah. A laptop's like $900 in New York. It's a slice of a pie is like $30, $24 or whatever. Once you get it delivered, that's 30 pies.
What laptops are you buying, Colin? Ours are like 1,200, unless they're Chromebooks.
Oh, I get a good deal from Dell. They'll give us a good deal.
What kind of like Celeron little
Celeron
processors?
i3
fell off the back of a truck.
Please don't talk about Celeron.
No, Essence is a lot larger than most of our companies.
No,
yeah,
we're pretty good with their pricing now.
Yeah, we're part of an organization of like 100,000 people, so you got a lot of better pricing once you're included in that tier. Yes,
which just makes it all the more like confounding that you were able to somehow value prop somebody into G Suite Enterprise. Like trying to do it for 200 people is insane. I've been trying to do it for a year almost, and I can't convince them to go up $10 a user.
Yeah, but the trade-offs for G Suite Enterprise are like more readily apparent the more users you have. It's like all of that security, DLP, also, investigation tools.
It increases the redundancy that we have in our environment, though. That's the problem. So we haven't fully evaluated what those redundancies are.
So do you have other tools to do context-aware access? The one thing that we like about G Suite Enterprise and justify the cost is the context-aware access, where you can check that a device has got a modern OS and it's got an encrypted hard disk before it will able to access your G Suite data.
No, we don't have anything that does that. We have stuff that does the DLP. We have stuff that does the security, vulnerability scanning, and all of that stuff. We would move everything into GCP and Google Enterprise. But it's just, I don't know, it's just a hard proposition, because whenever you have to do a redundancy evaluation, there's an overlap period where you have both. Yeah. And we're still in the overlap period for several of our systems.
On the G Suite Enterprise value prop there, if I look at the roadmap, I can't talk more about it, but if I look at the roadmap, I see a lot of end user focused features from G Suite that are gonna be enterprise only in the future. Not just recording in Drive, but a lot more of those features go enterprise only.
There's been some cool stuff lately that's been enterprise only.
If you look at this in 2022 or so,
finance though.
But
you're gonna see more features.
Dominic, every company when they launch new features, they'll make it on the top tier. Slack, you need to have whatever tier it is to have the guest workspaces or whatever it is, the guest users, shared workspaces, whatever it's called. I don't use Slack.
I have Grid. You mean the multi-workspaces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shared channels between other
external
different company.
Level.
That's shared. Yeah, shared channels is for two different company Slacks to interact with each other.
Right, but that's only available on the
You
top
should be able
tier,
to do
isn't
that
it?
on Plus because
Yeah, you
No,
can get
you
that
don't
on
need
Plus.
you don't need grid there for that.
okay,
Yeah, Grid is if you want to have I think Rose was saying multi workspaces.
multiple workspaces for one company, one directory, multiple workspaces.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but you need to go off the first tier, don't you, to get that feature?
Yeah. You need to pay for it at all just to be able to see more than 10,000 messages.
Yes.
You need to pay for it if you just want to do API integration for archiving, which is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we talked about earlier on, needing the top tier.
But it's actually really impressive to me how many companies get away with using a free Slack workspace for an incredible amount of time. Like people will do it for a very long time until it becomes far, far too painful. And it's amazing. It's amazing. But I mean, like, it's all in the name of reducing costs. Honestly, I think most of the IT teams here are probably not the IT teams that are known for wasting exorbitant amounts of money. Our team hasn't been pressed to cut anything because there's nothing to cut. Not really. Like, we're not the team that is wasting money. So,
I mean, if I look at Barak's latest post, I'm certainly not going to spend $10,000 US dollars per employee and year on SaaS applications. Barak Kaufman, the founder and CEO of Intello, who posted it.
Is that the Intello's recent survey thing that they did? They did a survey of different size companies and how many apps they had, free and paid, and then how much total SaaS spend they had and how much spend they had per employee. It was very interesting.
I mean, something like Salesforce will be half of that, or a quarter of that by itself. So that adds up pretty quick.
Well, but basically when they got up to enterprise level, a SaaS license per employee for just one tool cost on average 8.6 cents. Because that's how it's scaled up. All the SaaS tools they had in their environment. So I think enterprise, I think a lot of them must be paying flat fees and stuff like that for different tools. But yeah, it got pretty dramatic. But startups are spending, as we know, a
750 to 999 employees. It's 10,076 and 45 cents in US dollars per employee per year. That's an average. And that's,
I don't know what it is per year.
That's 850 a month.
Yeah. For us,
how is that even possible?
200.
Yeah, I don't know.
You get all of them?
Yeah. So for us, it's almost 200 per employee per month.
Yeah, that's within a reasonable ballpark.
Yeah. But so 10,000 a year.
More, but
10,000 a year is about that. It's
about 800. 850. That's 289 paid apps for 750 people.
That's $900. Ugh. That's a lot, but
I don't fucking know.
you think about all the systems you have to tie all your systems together, then adds up.
Well, yeah, especially with, again, I'm going to pick on Salesforce, right? So your Salesforce license is $2,500. Then you have 30 or 40 extensions within Salesforce you need access to, right? You've got your Lightning and you got your this thing and your toolbox for that and this data point. And okay, those, now you're looking at $3-4 grand a year just for Salesforce. Okay, so everything else you need on top of that, yeah, that $800 a month is definitely on the high end. Their interns aren't that expensive, but it seems totally reasonable to me.
Business
you get down to 4,300 on that scale with 2,000 plus.
Takes certain systems like AWS and Google, and it actually considers them SaaS applications.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not looking at it as necessarily just software as a service. They're looking at infrastructure. They're looking at platforms. They're looking at all of those systems. And I mean,
and enterprise systems spend a lot more on AWS. And that would break it down to a per employee cost of a lot higher. Yeah, our AWS spend, if you break it out, probably adds almost an extra $100 per employee. That's quite a bit.
Do you guys all consider your licensing when you round it up for the cost of an application? Do you sort of look at the per user license across the year as opposed to a per month? And do you have a sort of a spreadsheet that tallies up what your ongoing costs are per user? Because it is, it is, if you have 10 applications that only cost $5 a month, that's not much. When you each pitch those single $5 a month applications, but when they start to add up, obviously, that's when your overall cost per user starts to increase.
We have a spreadsheet for our core applications.
Yeah.
And the core ones are ones that are like required for every employee.
Right.
That we manage. But then, I mean, we have Blissfully for the rest of it.
Right. Keep track of that. Yeah. Spend management.
I prefer to think of costs as a per user per month because it's a good reference. It's a good way to reference SaaS tools against each other. There's a couple of tools we use that use per user per year or, not like per user pricing. And those are harder to wrap your head around when we're so used to the per user per month kind of environment.
So I've said this before, we recommend, or we internally, we do it as a cost of how much the employee, we wrap it into the employment budget. So if you hire someone, you gotta consider their licenses as well, which is usually on a yearly basis for us.
Yeah.
So it's not an IT budget per se. It's hey, your team spends $10,000 US dollars per user per year on licenses. You gotta have that in the calculation for your employee hiring as well. So that's how we do that.
Right. Yeah.
At my last company, it was just a general contracting company, so it was construction. That's basically like building buildings, and IT's in the cave, in the back cave. We don't really care about you. So there was really no revenue there, but we just got the leftovers. So the way we did it was we leveraged, well, it was just me. We used Power BI for cost financial, analytics. And I actually built reports where we would see cost per day based on trends we saw through tickets, and then also seeing how much usage per application. So then we could really delineate, okay, these applications we're using pretty heavily, like 80% optimization, like we're certainly using those. But these other 20% guys, they're not even being used. No one's logging into them. We're not seeing any type of activity or event monitoring here. So WTF, like why are we paying for this? Yeah. And that would be my weekly report with my CIO to go through each, okay, here's how much we're spending each day on XYZ application. Very extensive. Oh, Blair. So sorry, got distracted. But yeah, that's how we did it. But because I loved reporting, I really wanted to know what I was spending our money on because we only got so much of it. So we had to kind of nickel and dime every.
Oh, and that's an easy thing to plot too, right?
100%.
Usage versus how much you're paying for it. Like if usage is high and you're paying a lot for it,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
But if usage is low and you're paying a lot for it, like that's a clear.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I've been asked to do something similar in G Suite using Data Studio and looking at usage for like whether it's Google Docs, Drive, Sheets, Gmail, especially if they have like redundancy between Microsoft 365 and G Suite.
I know we're going to be probably working on consolidating even more of our Office 365 licenses. We have them for like client-facing use cases, but we've been a little bit lazy about enforcing it. And so, but it's one of our biggest areas of opportunity because It's not like we're
We
moving away.
get a lot of requests that are like, can I have an Office license? And then a lot of times they're granted, and then other times I'm like, so can you tell me a little bit more about what you need that Office license for? And they're like, well, I downloaded this doc and I wanted to make a change to it and send it back to somebody. Like,
I'm like,
so I was like, so Google Docs actually does. I was like, oh, is there a lot of like formatting? And they're like, no. Okay. And then one time I was like, so we can use Google Docs for this. It's great. And they were like, is this a hard thing? Because this other person has an Office license. And can
I know
go? People
all the time.
Like, I don't care who has an Office license. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna take it away from them too. Sorry. Like,
well, the thing is like we really try to be flexible about that. Like, we had a user one time who never asked us for an Office license. She was working with a client who normally those people, that team gets Office licenses. She never asked us for one, and we had to reimage her computer for something, and she had Office. She had downloaded it using her daughter's school license. And I was like, you could have just asked us. Like, that's the thing, is like, it's such a tricky place to be, because we don't want to make people feel like we won't give it to them if they need it. But like, my threshold for accepting when you need it is different than theirs. Like,
then you start running into compliance issues and everything.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that is a red flag.
yeah, it was bad. We were like, don't ever do that again. Ever.
Yeah.
We had somebody who was trying to get Outlook to work with G Suite or with Gmail, and we were like going through like the G Suite, whatever their like sync tool is that lets you do that. Whatever it's called. And there was like first of all, there was like some troubleshooting issues with that, and then we got it resolved, and then basically everything was set up, and she was like, why? Well, this isn't like my old Outlook. I don't like how this looks. And I was like, well, this is like what Outlook looks like now. And then 2 weeks later, we were doing another screen share, and she's like, yeah, I got it to work a lot better now. And I was like, why does your Outlook look a lot different? Because she had downloaded like a version of Office 2013 somehow and installed it on her computer.
Legacy, baby. Legacy.
I had
and that's when you think about giving users admin or not, don't you?
Yeah, no, right. I was like,
that's the downside.
I had a CEO one time want to switch back after a huge O365 to G Suite transition. After like 90 days of being in G Suite, they're like, yeah, the Gmail app just doesn't work for me. I like Outlook. So can we go ahead and just undo all of this, please? Buddy, let me help you.
It's fine. We just migrated all kinds of data.
Yeah,
no like 8 months of
You
work.
can migrate back 10 terabytes of data if you want.
So stupid.
You know what? You feel you don't like this, so yeah, we'll go ahead and undo all of that.
Oh shit!
God.
Yeah, it's an attitude I just can't relate to. This is the tool I use at my job, so I need to learn how to use this tool well. And I've never been able to relate to, like, personally, I hated Gmail. I grew up using Office. And figure it out. Like, that's your job. I don't get that mentality. Even at a CEO level, I mean, I can understand the personality type that would do that, but if it's your job to use Outlook or Excel or Google Docs, figure out how to do that well and succeed. I mean,
yeah, I actually hate
everyone that's like, I don't know how to work from home. It's like, yeah, it's different than an office. Like it clearly, right? But
read about it.
You just
figure it out.
Yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah, try.
It is very strange what some people say. You know, when they say, if you are working solely in G Suite and all you need is the Chrome browser, and they say, oh, I can only work on Mac. I don't know how to use a Windows machine. So you don't know how to click the Chrome icon on a Windows machine? What's that? How is that different from being on a Mac?
Can't figure out that
Are you just sitting there yelling at the computer? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's very strange when somebody says that they can only work on one system, because it seems to be very limited you're sort of limiting yourself in this day and age where you would think that people would be
Yeah,
smart,
well, and especially if
in
you're a
some
G Suite
careers.
if
Pardon?
you're a G Suite forward environment, like you can work pretty much entirely from a Chrome browser. I do, like, except for Slack and Zoom, which are technically progressive web apps that I can open in Chrome too. And except for the multi G Suite tenant thing that I have going on, I used a Chromebook for like 8 months and didn't have any problems with it.
My Chromebook is right on my nightstand. That thing works flawless.
And like it's so simple and so easy to use.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I know that there's a learning curve for people. Like I know that like sometimes finding your downloads folder is different if it's not where you're expecting it to be. But like, I don't know, people just don't give themselves enough credit, maybe, or we don't give them enough credit. I don't know what it is, but
yeah,
like sometimes people will like, can you show me how to do this thing? And I'm like, sure. You're going to share your screen and I'm going to tell you what to click on. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to do the thing that you think is impossible.
Yeah.
The minute I assumed all my users knew as much about computers as my mom or my grandma, it made my life so much easier.
Right. Being
My
an
mom
IT
can figure
professional,
her way around a Mac though. Like she had never used one and she did just fine when I got
it
my
is
Mac.
very hard to have a perspective because you can't unlearn what you know. So it is very, even when you think you're being sympathetic, you may still be starting at 3 levels above where someone's at.
Well, and part of the thing about IT people too is we have part of what makes us good at our jobs is we have an innate ability to troubleshoot things and figure things out by following a logical pattern, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Learn the patterns of the computers, and because we know the patterns, we can figure out a lot of other problems. So like sometimes these things are just like if you didn't know anything about Google, you wouldn't know this, but because I know things about Google and I know how Google works, I would know the answer to this question or the way that this problem works.
When I was a trainer at Apple doing the retail training and development, one of the things they're big on is this concept of like lead learning out. Like you should be able to train someone how to use an app or a platform or a product, even if you've never used it and you're not sitting at the controls and you're in fact on the other side of the display from that person, right? And it's like, okay, that's a really interesting exercise when you say it out loud. You're like, that's impossible. No, if you know kind of what you were saying, Rose, you know generally how computers work. You can lead people to the answer by asking, value-based questions and whatnot, and get them to learn how to use like Logic or Final Cut, even if you're not even looking at the screen, right? Like that. But normal people can't.
What are you
like
seeing
that.
right now? Tell me.
Well,
Explain everything.
I worked at Apple also, and I was working behind the Genius Bar, and it was an amazing learning opportunity for both of us. Just to say, listen, okay, I'm basically IT help desk for all of these end users, and then flip it to, I'm also a trainer for people that have no business with this computer.
Damn it.
Silence.
I was going to say something. I didn't realize I was on mute. Nah, I just realized I was on mute. I had a quick question for everybody. Being that you guys are the geek squad and you're in the some form of an IT department.
Whoa! Don't offend us like that, geek squad. Come on, man.
And we have credentials. And
I'm curious.
I'm a businessman. I'm not a geek.
I'm curious if you guys have noticed like just increased fatigue in general with like IT requests or things shifting around, finding out more gaps and security vulnerabilities. Like, where do you feel yourself, shifting in different projects? Do you feel like you're more security focused now? Are you more concerned about your users, or is it just all the above?
One thing that I'll say that, and I know we've discussed this previously, was a big focus on zero-touch deployment. And we talked about Autopilot, Intune, Jamf, Apple Business Manager, and also security. There's certainly in the last 2 months, there's been a huge uptick in spear phishing and phishing in general. It seems that everybody's doing it, and some people are really good at getting quite creative and actually should get recognized for their creativity on trying to phish. And then other people have just read, a New York Times article about phishing and think, oh, I'll give it a go. and it's not very impressive at all, and easily gets spotted and blocked by the filters.
For us, it's training, and not only technical training, but especially cultural training about and around working from home, working remotely, and working asynchronously. Those are our main focus points with our customers and end users. So those are, because that's the bigger issue with like not being in an office from our point of view as a partner.
There's a lot of extra work that goes into making sure that like the way that business happens and decisions happen are based less on conversations and more on documentation. As this has happened, it's like really a good idea, but because you're always just like sitting next to somebody or you're looking at them or whatever, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, we're going to do this, right? And everybody agrees. But you know, with different people in different time zones or people, you know, like it's also harder to have this conversation across
Someone
Zoom.
secretly always disagrees on meetings and never says anything.
Yes.
And that's
Oh my God.
that's a thing.
The worst.
Yeah.
And if you do it asynchronously, that's not as much of a problem.
Yeah, here, like, here's this doc with notes that we have. Here's the decisions that we were talking about. Everybody comment on it. You have until X time to voice your opinion.
I think
You know what's coming after you. Yeah.
I worry the most about companies that don't plan to be remote or remote friendly long term, because they have no real incentive to change the way the culture works. Like, other than we need to get our work done now, sometimes it can take months or years for companies to figure out that they're not working well asynchronously and they need to change their communication strategies. It can take a very long time to see the effect of that and to see it happening. And I worry about the companies that aren't planning to be open to remote work in the long term, because they have no incentive to ask those questions, right? And so what have they been doing since March? Like, probably the wrong thing.
Head in the sand, probably.
Good questions, probably for another call, another day.
Yeah, or you know, they've been making decisions or doing work in a way that wasn't inclusive, wasn't well balanced, you know, in the way that it would have been if it was in the office. Not that I think in-office conversations are any better necessarily. They just tend to draw in more people. So.
Good points.
All right, I think it's been a great round of discussions and conversations with, you know, there is obviously a recurring theme for some of our stuff, and the same, you know, company situations get brought up. You know, and obviously the battle between, you know, justifying continuing licensing and managing the reduction in your SaaS usage if you do have a reduced workforce is, you know, something that we'll have to work out throughout the year as our contracts, you know, come up and get negotiated, and hopefully some of the vendors will start to be more open and, you know, will give us annual pricing on a monthly contract, as opposed to, you know, trying to tie us in to a longer contract just to get that reduced license count. You know, because obviously we all need to be conscious and aware of our budgets, and I think we have to do the best job we can of any cost spending reduction, you know, through sensible license management. For the better of the business, you know, to keep it safe and secure, or at least to give us budget for pizza when we finally get back in the office and everybody has a big get together lunch. So
just ship it to the home offices. See you soon.
Just send me a gift card for pizza.
Send you 2 slices.
We're gonna start a GoFundMe for Rose.
I was gonna say they have all the addresses, so they could just Uber Eats or Grubhub every single employee their own personal pizza.
Love it.
All right, well, thank you very
See
much,
you next
everybody.
week.
I've got to drop for another call. I know we'll end the recording here. Michael's got
Bye,
the
guys.
magical stop button. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Take care.
Bye. Keep it safe.